And, thank you for jumping on this. So I'll just get straight to the point. I think the first question for me is remote selling is obviously different from the B2B, traditional B2B sales. And I wanted to know what it's like managing a B2B remote sales team.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But I think there's benefits and there's drawbacks. On the drawback side, I guess maybe I'm old school, I'm not sure, but I miss the sales floor. I miss that camaraderie and the buzz that comes with it when the team is just humming and, deals are flying around left and right. I think it's more challenging to have your finger on the pulse of the team. There's plenty of great tools out there now that are making this easier, and I think adoption of those really does make a difference. But either way, you kind of miss that human element and that in-room presence that allows you to really, have your finger on that heartbeat. But at the same time, I do think remote selling has increased the value of trust and transparency in the organization or across the team. And so I think this has been a nice pivot where trust and transparency is what drives high quality team culture. Not that it didn't before, but that's basically what we have, right? Like in the past, there's that social presence, there's that human touch that maybe, leads to different types of interactions. Here, it's we have to be able to trust each other. We have to be transparent in our communication because the time that we have on Zoom and on Slack is basically about it, right? And so that's where culture really comes from now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So just the next question basically is, how do you think remote selling has affected the sales cycle, if it has at all?
Yeah, I think it has, but it probably is a little bit different based on the segment that you're selling into. So like, for example, in the enterprise segment, I think where buyers are more accustomed to face-to-face interactions and longer term relationships, I think remote selling has maybe introduced some challenges there. Although I do think that it has and it will continue to dissipate over time, I still do think that challenge exists. On the flip side, though, I do believe buyers and sellers are benefiting from the efficiency and the flexibility that remote software evaluation does offer. Like sellers have always attempted to leverage like every possible channel to connect with their target audience, their prospects. But I do feel like, anecdotally, I've seen a shift on the buy side where buyers are comfortable engaging in meaningful ways across like a wide variety of different channels, including text and Slack and other collaborative tools that maybe they weren't before, right? So we start to get different types of interaction that come out of that flexibility that both sides have. And I also think that the remote environment has expedited the requirement for sellers to make sure that they're providing value like at every single touch point, because the touch points are all digital and they're generally more brief than they used to be when you were spending more time with the client. And so we have to make them valuable, right? We have to make sure every single one of those, because you get a finite amount of touch points during the cycle. You have to be moving that opportunity forward each and every time. And so I think the sales profession was moving towards that anyway. It wasn't already there, but there's more point of emphasis on it now. And so really, I see the shift to remote as a net positive for both sides of the deal.
Great to hear that. And I think the last one is, what's your surefire tip for managing a remote sales floor?
Yeah, I think going back to prioritizing trust and transparency and how you approach culture, being a bit more open than maybe what is typical in everything from the plan and how we're coming to the quota model. And let's make sure that the team really feels bought into this and they understand the workings, and it doesn't feel like things are just popping out of a black box again, because all of these interactions are digital and you don't get those moments to create personal connection that you might when you're in person. I would say in your one-on-ones, I don't think this is rocket science, but make sure you're saving time for personal connection there too. Again, we don't necessarily see the whole person as much as we used to, so it's really more important to be intentional about making time for that, right? You may not know or may not realize over Zoom that someone is struggling in a way that maybe you might in person, and so making sure that you understand that and you're there to support it actually goes to building that trust and that transparency too. So critically important. And finally, I think making sales enablement more of a point of emphasis than it's been in the past. So building like fit for purpose internal funnels and channels to help reps get the exact information that they need at that exact time. You know, we can't just like pull down our headset and yell to the person next to us or nudge them right and when you're on a live call, and that used to be super valuable, right? And so now it's more important than ever to make sure that the team can support themselves autonomously and they can find the exact resource that they need or the exact piece of content to support the customer across every single execution point in the buyer journey. So, you know, I would say sales enablement and the resourcing of it has become more important than ever been in the remote environment.
Thanks. That was a really good one. And at this point, I'll say speak again. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thanks a lot, Dove. Take it easy.